Well, back to the Jesse Rucinski show, and today, might have said that we are going to go talk about some more current stuff, but at that point in the day yesterday, my brain was all over God's creation. Ah, so completely like I'm not good with numbers. Like, I don't know what day is it. So I didn't realize. I mean, I wasn't even thinking tomorrow's the 7th because I wasn't thinking today is the 6th. So we're gonna cover Pearl Harbor because it's been 80 years since the attack by the Japanese. Attack on Pearl Harbor. And according to archives.gov, the U.S. had 4,535 casualties and lost or severe damage to 188 planes, 8 battleships, 3 light cruisers, and 4 miscellaneous vessels. Japanese loss was less than 100 personnel, 29 planes, and 5 midget submarines. And when I say those, battleships and all, like, that was the whole fleet of them. And then according to Britannica, there were destroyed or damaged 18 ships of war, which include the entire battleship force and 347 planes. And U.S. casualties amounted to 2,403 dead and 1,178 wounded. Again, like, you look anywhere, it seems it's kind of terrifying how there's just a different number every time you turn around. There's a lot of that. When I looked up like 5 different places and they all had different numbers. So, and some of them were just different, like, government entities, and they had different numbers. So there's always that. But important stuff that happened the day after the attack, before a joint session of Congress, President Roosevelt asked Congress for a declaration of war against Japan, and got with only one dissenting vote. We are trying, the isolationist thing, not trying to get back into another war after World War One had happened and getting into everyone else's stuff. I mean, but 3 days later, Germany and Italy declared war against us, and Congress voted unanimously that time and declared war on them, which that attack and all that led us into World War II. At the time, the U.S. had around 2.2 million men at arms, and barely any army divisions were even close to the state of actual readiness or preparedness for this to happen. Again, we were drug into it, but readiness is key to things. The Army Air Corps only had around 1,100 combat planes in different states of readiness, and that included serviceability, being up to date with all newer technologies and everything that they could have. But don't worry, there was a lot, like, during this war. I mean, whether it was us or on the other side with Hitler, the Nazis and Stalin, and all, like, everyone, like, this was, so many things were made, like so many different types of rockets and jet engines, and like if you can, like, get on to see it on Hitler's mega weapons, look up that. It's a PBS show. I mean, I don't know if you can find it anywhere free. It used to be on Netflix, but it isn't anymore. But watch that, because that shows you just a bunch of stuff that Hitler and them came up with, and it was really, I thought it was a really good thing. Watched it a few times just because you always catch something more. But eventually we went from that 2.2 million to 15 million men and women that would serve. And we were at such a bad state of readiness, which, I mean, after World War One, but it took until 1943 for the U.S. to be capable of large-scale offensive campaigns, while they were building, like, literally everything up. I mean, 2.2 to 15 million by the end of it. I mean, that was a large build up to get lots of people. There's drafts. There's, all the drives they did for, things, all the rationing. Like, a lot of people did a lot of sacrificing to be able to get us to that point in 1943 to be able to actually go on large offensives, in this war. And it was like, just telling you, like, it's crazy how much stuff, like, happened, how many battles. But synthetic rubber industry was developed from scratch. Again, all the rationing, like we all know, like, they rationed everything. There were drives for everything. Like, they did lots and lots. And then there was so much sacrifice for all the people then, young, old, in between, like, everyone, all families were making some kind of sacrifice to do it, to keep it going, so we could stay, for the country. Like, it was really just amazing. We did develop proximity fuse and, of course, the nuclear bomb. which would later be used, kept inflation under control during all of it. But the cost of the war to the federal government from 1941 to 1945 was, giant number, but $320+ billion, which 10 times higher than the cost of World War One. Taxes paid 41% of the cost. The number for World War One in that category is 33%. So, more tax money, but they actually raised numbers of that. But we're about to get in that. National debt increased fivefold to 259 billion in 1945, and the Tax Revenue Act of 1942 increased the number of those who paid taxes from 13 million to 50 million. Ergo, that's how they were able to raise so much more, out of taxes, to pay for it. Unless they had to get money from other financial institutions and all that to pay them back, but other sources. But it was better than selling war bonds and lowering all that and doing everything that entails. But again, sacrifice that everyone made was just amazing. Civilian employment rose from 46 million in 1940 to 53 million by 1945. The pool of unemployed males dried up in 1943, and all the needs were not met, even with all of that. And that include increases, once all the male pool dried up within female, minority, and overage or underage males working. So they got the labor force they needed, and everything that we were producing at that point for the war and all that, like they couldn't even find enough people to do it. Like they were producing so much and they still ran out of people, millions of them. And again, whole different thing. But that also got Roosevelt to sign Executive Order 8802 on June 25th of 1941, which prohibited racial discrimination in job training programs and by defense contractors. He also established the Fair Employment Practices Committee to ensure compliance in that. And by the end of 1942, 2 million Black men and women were at work in the defense industries, which is a giant move for them and in the country. And, really did have the biggest, because of that, all these good paying jobs and all that, the wage gap, all those things, it was one of the biggest times for that ever during that war, because everyone got to work and everyone needed to be to work. And they signed all the stuff to stop discrimination, doing everything, which, that was a giant step in the country. Did it, completely solve everything? No. Did a lot of states follow and check, in line with the federal government doing that to get rid of discrimination laws and all that in there? Yes. But were there still problems way after the war? Yes, there were. And there's some places where it's still very much alive and well, and places that are still living with the ghosts of the past and all that discrimination. But during World War II, that was a giant, growth rate for all of them, because, again, all the work that was there, they needed it. Stop discrimination, stop everything, just get in there and go for the betterment of everything. They were signing executive orders and all that. So stop it, which, is phenomenal, and really did, again, it was one of the biggest growth periods for them, just because, they're finally allowed to do all these things. So that was, really good. Another one, though, there were sadly some 15,000 labor stoppages during the war, strikes and all those, it's stuff that happens over wages and work conditions, all that. Which is around 36 million man days. That was man days, not man hours, man days lost, which is just astonishing. 36 million. How long the war was, do the math. That's a lot of people. A lot of people. Whole lot of people. But, and another sad note here's one from the war, but the internment camps, the West Coast and all that, around 110,000 Japanese Americans. They lost their liberties, their freedoms, property, businesses, houses. They lost all kinds of things, and it wasn't necessary. And those people were all even rounded up, and all that stuff happened even after the FBI went through and got all the ones that were supposed to be bad actors out. And that was 6 figures worth of people, like innocent people, are just here hard working, trying to make a life in this country. And they didn't deserve any of that. I mean, they were there to fight for it too. I mean, they would have fought for this thing if they had the chance, and they were thrown in internment camps, even though we were, going after, Hitler was part of it. And look what Stalin was doing to people, murdering people. Look what Hitler was doing to people, like all the stuff they were doing. Like, were we any better in that situation? I don't care. I love the country, but in that situation, like, how did that make us better than them? We're supposed to be the beacon, like it just, but thankfully there were some good ones. Yeah. That, did good work. There were lots of people that did good work, but there are so many hundreds of thousands that got completely just screwed in that whole entire thing for absolutely nothing. Just because Japan attacked us. And these Japanese Americans and other people that came over here that were, loved America or American through and through, that got dealt one of the dirtiest hands in history just because of their heritage. Even after they were, looked into by, the Fed and everyone else, like they still got screwed with. And there's nothing we could do to make that any better. How do you make doing something like that to that many people? Like, how do you make it better? Like, you don't. But that need remembered too out there, because a lot of them didn't do a damn thing, and there they were. Ridiculous. Moving on, the United Nations was formed in December of 1941, the wartime alliance of 26 nations that was signed, that was started by Roosevelt and Winston Churchill. In 1945, 50 nations signs the charter for permanent United Nations to be around, not just in wartime and in times of peace, to do everything that they do and what they've turned into now. All that was started from World War II. Japan was under siege in 1945 with the invasions of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. And they, after we dropped the bombs on them in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, came around September 2nd. They signed off on the surrender. They officially surrendered in Tokyo Harbor, and they did it on the USS Missouri battleship. So, which is very, I guess, I know there's a better word than full circle, but that's like, the big, you attacked us, we're still here, we still got it, we still won. All that, which brought a big thing. That was after, Hitler's, after he did, sign off on the surrender. Like, there was all kinds of stuff we can get into what Hitler did and all, like the whole nother thing. I have my own feelings. Historians have their own feelings. Like, a lot of weird. I'm just talking about battle wise. I'm not talking about what he did outside of that. But symbolic. There's the word. Is symbolic of them signing it off on one of our battleships, USS Missouri in Tokyo Harbor. Then we can't forget about the battles that happened across, like, all over the place. I mean, we were all over Africa, Italy. I mean, you name it. But the Battle of the Hurricane Forest, 33,000 casualties. That was in Hurricane Forest, which is the German-Belgium border, and the Siegfried Line campaign. There's a lot of Siegfried Line campaigns in here. You'll notice it. Battle of Normandy, 16,293 killed, 43,221 wounded, 6,180 captured or missing, totaling 63,360 in Normandy, France. Battle of Salerno, 4,870 casualties in Salerno, Italy. Battle of Aachen, however you want to pronounce it. People doing it all the time. So either way, but 5,000 casualties, and that's in Aachen, Germany. Also, the Siegfried Line campaign. Battle of the Bulge, 19,000 killed, 47,500 wounded, 23,000 missing, 89,500 total. That's the Ardennes, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Germany. Also a Siegfried Line campaign. Battle of Midway, 370 casualties near Midway Atoll. Battle of Guadalcanal. It's a big one. 1,600 killed, 4,400 missing, and that were never found. That's in Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands. Battle of Tarawa. It's the name Tarawa Terrace. It's like base housing here in town, named after it. But Battle of Tarawa, 1,000 killed, 2,296 wounded. Betio Tarawa Atoll. Battle of Saipan. 2,949 killed, 10,364 wounded, 13,313 total in Saipan, the Mariana Islands. Battle of Manila, 1,010 killed, 5,565 wounded, 6,575 total in Manila, Philippines. Battle of Iwo Jima, like we all know that one. That thing, yeah, raising the flag, like all that. But 6,821 killed, 19,217 injured, 26,038 in total in Iwo Jima, Japan. And then Battle of Okinawa. There's so much stuff over there in the Pacific, but 12,513 killed, 38,916 injured, 51,429 total in Okinawa, Japan. And like, there were so many, there are dozens more. I just didn't want to kill everyone with the whole entire list of every battle that ever happened. I went through ones that, people, probably know or, I've heard of throughout everything. Important ones. Battle of Iwo Jima is a big one. Guadalcanal, Midway, Ardennes, that was a crazy one. The Battle of the Bulge Forest. And really everything. The Siegfried Line was just, that was a big, important one. Normandy, we all know Normandy. Like, there's a lot of really, really big historically important battles there. Again, look into all of them. Like, there's a lot of stories and just history there that you really don't get to hear a lot about from that war, but we got drug into it because of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And like, that's where it all, like, we were trying to stay out of it. You guys, and again, that's just, some of the battles. That's not all of them. That's not everything. But that's a lot of just people that could still be here. They're not, but could still be here. Bloody, it's just, I don't think the world that didn't serve and didn't know anyone, like, appreciates it nowadays. It's just sad, but I mean, those people, like, the sacrifices that they all made, regardless if they were just civilians here in the States, rationing and doing all the drives for everything, or they were over there battling in those battles, or they were doing the medics or supply, like, everyone that played a role in that. I mean, everyone, like politicians, like everyone, like, played a thing in there and rose to the occasion. And those were not easy things. Those were not, there wasn't a single easy day in all of it. And you don't hear too much. Like, I don't hear too much about it ever now. People saw the map on, like, World War II, Call of Duty, and stuff. They see maps there and they're okay, but they don't actually, like, look into it. There's so much stuff, and I just think they deserve more. Again, sacrifice. There's been, again, while there's rationing, working together, just doing everything they had to do to keep us after we got attacked and drug into it. And how much everyone was willing to sacrifice, whether it was, again, food, medals, like, all just signing up to go over there to battle. Like, all the people we lost just in that, like, it's deserved. Like, you got to respect every single one of them, and everyone should. It was a crazy level that they, like, sacrificed that every single one of them had. That's the only reason why I was ever really upset with the way they were spending with Obama's defense people. Like, I think they said we actually had the lowest readiness since before we got drug into World War II. And everyone, oh, just because you hate Obama. It's like, no, like, because look what happened last time. We were not ready, and we were caught flat-footed. When we had that attack, we lost our whole battleship fleet. So many people died. We weren't prepared, and it took us years to even be ready to do it. And that's not good, especially with, the bad actors we have in the world right now that will want nothing more than to see us die. So hopefully we get to, hopefully we keep our readiness rate, just because there's so many crazy people out there. And I really hope we can all come together like they did then, like we did in 9/11, like, come together and realize we're all Americans. We're all in this together. And I hope it doesn't take something catastrophic happening, but it always seems to anymore, which is just, and even when crazy things happen now, I mean, everyone just turns into this big divisive thing. There is no, we can all just rise together. It's just a bunch of middle fingers and sadness. And I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't like it. But I really hope we can finally, just get through everything and figure out how to come together and be like America. That doesn't have to take some crazy thing like catastrophe for us to all come together. Like, it's amazing to me that we even get there. And don't forget also, I mean, look at all the documentaries, mini series, movies, books, like everything out there dedicated to all these battles and Pearl Harbor and everything that happened after that and all the different parts of World War II and just so much stuff. Please, like, find them, check them out, listen to them, read them, watch them, pay attention when you're doing it. Like, there's a lot of really good stuff out there. And again, like, what none of this would be like talked about, like us talking about, like if we didn't get dragged into it with that attack on Pearl Harbor and the declaration of war and everything that went there. We're trying, and they've done a lot of good work to get all of it out there and get the history of it all out there. So I highly encourage everyone to go and find the stuff and read it out. And like, if you're listening, tell other people, like, because there's so much really, really, good stuff out there. And, again, sacrifices that were made by everyone to get us through that because we were under attack. Because it is a great country. They all proved it because look at everything they were doing. Look at all the people trying to get here. Like, it shouldn't, like, and look, I only brought up anyone on the left one time, like, in a derogatory way. And that's just because of where our readiness was. So they wanted to cut defense spending. Right now, the way Russia and China are, and like Iran, like all, we need to have defense spending. We need to be ready. Not getting caught flat-footed with like all these rockets and everything that everyone else, has, like, shoot around the planet once before it hits its target. Like, we shouldn't be getting caught off guard with that. Like, that stuff should not be happening. Just pull our heads out, come together, use our brains, just so we're ready. Just look what happened there when we weren't ready. Really bad surprise attack, and then it took us almost 2 years before we could do like any large offensive or anything, just because we didn't have anything. And people were very, like, they're doing all the sacrifices back then. I mean, look around the world. Do you think, in the country, how divided and how stupid everyone is? Do you think we're going to have the same thing? I don't think so. There's a lot of semper eyes out there, but man, if everyone could just grow up and get over it before, and realize how lucky they are and how good they have it. Never know. But again, look up some of those battles, read some stuff, do all that, share it around to people just so they have an idea of something besides, okay, it was just Pearl Harbor. Like, there's so much that led up after that. There are attacks beforehand, little ones here and there, but that attack led us right into that, declarations of war and all kinds of stuff, and loss and sacrifice and everything. So this is a big one, important one, and shouldn't be forgotten here on 80 years. 80 years. Long time. But that being said, I'm gonna let you go. Got a Breaking Benjamin acoustic concert to go to tonight, which I'm looking forward to. And we'll be back tomorrow. I'll be here. Don't know what we're going to talk about, but I'll be here. Make sure you're ready to check it out. It could just go off the cuff, which is always good. Maybe I'll just talk about CNN, Chris Cuomo, and all that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Maybe I'll just sit here and talk about the concert for forever. But again, make sure you look up the books, documentaries, miniseries, like, watch them, tell people about them, get people like more involved in knowing what this day is an anniversary of, with Pearl Harbor and the death there, and then everything that led up after it. It really is one of the biggest moments in history. Drug us into the last World War. It's kind of important stuff, and those people should be remembered. And everyone should know why we're remembering them, not just because they got attacked. Like, there's just so many people outside of that. So, enjoy the rest of your day. Don't forget to subscribe to all the channels, like, comment, and share out all the audio and video, no matter where you're at. I have them on Write Only and Cloud Hub now too, so please subscribe there if you're there. Share them out. YouTube, Rumble, Anchor, Breaker, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, all over. So please comment and tell me what you think and share everything out, especially on this one, because they really don't seem to like me in the algorithm on Facebook. So again, I appreciate it. Thanks for checking me out. Make sure you do everything I said, or at least try to, because they deserve to be remembered. Enjoy the rest of your night. And until tomorrow, my friends, peace.